it would be a different world if to treat one like an animal meant to treat them with love, kindness, and respect. So it's very telling when people take offense at that. That's the entire paradigm that we're trying to change.
Welcome to the Hen Report from our hen house. I'm Jasmin Singer.
I'm Mariann Sullivan.
So excited about our chat today. Just a quick reminder first that the Our Hen House podcasts are now divided up into all of these.
Jasmin, everybody already knows this.
Yeah, I know, but what do you call it when you go out to eat and it's like, like tapas? It's like the tapas of podcasts.
Oh, right.
Sort of. We'll put that on the official Apple podcast page, the tapas of the vegan tapas of podcast. Rising Anxieties comes out on Tuesdays, the Hen Report on Thursdays, the long form interview on Fridays. Bonus for Flock members comes out on Mondays. We're on YouTube, we're on audio podcasts, we're in your living room. That would be weird. We're not. We might be if you're listening there. Hit subscribe and like wherever you listen. And sometimes when you're lucky, and when we're lucky, we have a guest for the Hen Report. And today is one of those days.
Who we call our wingman.
Our wingman.
And
right.
I have to say, I don't think we've ever had a woman on, and we really have to fix that, but we're not fixing it today.
Okay. We can, in my
But a
opinion,
woman can be a wingman. But
yeah. I would call her a wingman as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless she objected to that, in which case.
Yeah, and she doesn't have to be on.
Oh my God. Okay. Akber Khan.
I think it's Akber, isn't it?
Akber
Khan, yeah.
Did I say Ak?
You said Ak.
New Jersey.
That's
okay, I'm
common mistake. Don't worry about it.
It's okay. Akber Khan, who is a law student at Harvard Law School and works with Mariann on the Animal Law podcast, is here with us. Welcome to the Hen Report. Akber, thank you so much for hopping on with us.
Thank you both for having me. Long time, first time. So really happy to be here.
Cool.
Well, we're excited too. And I know that you've been working with Mariann on the Animal Law podcast, and we're just delighted that you're in the Our Hen House world here and looking forward to picking your brain a little bit today. So Mariann, how did this come about?
We were texting back and forth about the thing that everybody is talking about and texting about, pretty much nothing else, about the state of the world, the state of the country, the state of Minneapolis, all of it. And in the context of how we talk about animal issues when all of that's going on. I mean, it's something we've talked about on the podcast before, and it's constantly just on my mind. And Akber brought up a lot of interesting points, so I thought we'd ask him on to share some of those thoughts.
Yeah. Well, that's cool because we are struggling a little bit, and by a little bit, I mean all the time, a lot bit, with just how to focus on, well, not only doing the dishes and like brushing our teeth, but also running an animal rights media nonprofit in this moment in time and just sort of like functioning. So Akber, I know that you wrote some notes down about what you thought were kind of the best arguments, the best ways of talking about this, which is, by the way, very appropriate for a budding lawyer. But rather than reading your notes, can you just start by sharing some of your thoughts on the best way to express this idea that animal rights are part of the anti-fascist argument, not something we will, get to when we fix everything for humans?
Yeah, thanks for that kind of intro. I think animal rights activists are very well familiar with the parallels. I mean, it's as simple as if you're going to sanction oppression against one vulnerable, voiceless group with no legal status, it's really just a matter of where you're going to draw the line. You've conceded that this is an okay behavior for some people, and now we're just haggling over price, as the saying goes. And I don't know. That's not something I think that's always well received by left-wing activists who are so deep in the issue of the moment that certainly it may be an uncomfortable truth, but it's oppression is linked. It's an intersectional issue, and that's basically it. And we can go into that in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, one of the things that struck me when you were just talking about it is that it's not. I mean, not just that it's not particularly well received. It's really often considered offensive because there's this assumption that you're saying that people who are oppressed for whatever reason, whether it's women or African Americans or whatever, different ethnic groups. There's this idea that you're likening them to animals, and instead of making the other point that you're likening the oppression to the oppression. Like, do you have thoughts on how to deal with that?
I mean, just the mere fact that people are so primed to take offense at being compared to animals highlights the absurdity of the situation we're in, right? It would be a different world if to say to treat one like an animal meant to treat them with love, kindness, and respect. So it's very telling when people take offense at that. That's the entire paradigm that we're trying to change.
Yeah, but it is something that we have to think about all the time, because whether it's stupid or not in our minds, they do it. They do it. It's an argument ender. It's one of those
Mm-hmm.
like thought processes that says, okay, I don't have to think about this anymore because here's the problem with it. It's over. I particularly liked what you called your same apparatus argument. Do you recall like what you were talking about when you gave me those notes on that?
Yeah, there. I believe what I was referring to there is just there's a conceptual and sometimes explicitly legal overlapping framework that's used to oppress animals as well as people of undocumented immigrant status, and increasingly a shared apparatus that is cracking down on protesters for expressing their constitutionally protected rights. So one that I learned about recently was I think it's called the Animal Enterprise Terrorist Act. Just the designation, special designation of certain forms of protest or disruption against certain industries as not just mere disruption or trespass, but it's terrorism now. And we saw that in the last couple of weeks, where at the drop of a hat, at the slightest pretext, people in the Trump administration were justifying the killing of people like Renee Good and Alex Purdy because they were domestic terrorists. Them introducing the slightest friction to any ICE operation made them a terrorist, and that justified their killing.
Yeah, I am curious about something, and this is actually a question for Mariann, if you don't mind. I've known Mariann for like 20 years, and I have, I've never seen Mariann as undone about something as she has been recently in the, just in the cultural zeitgeist in the world right now. Obviously, Mariann, sorry to talk about you like you're not in the room, but cares very deeply about animals, is more passionate about animal rights than anyone I think I've ever met. But what's going on is like it's hitting. I would say, Mariann, it's hitting you on like a deeper level than I've certainly ever seen. And so I'm just wondering if what Akber is saying about these kind of parallels and the injustices and the root of injustice, is that like why? I mean, can you articulate, Mariann? You begin almost every episode lately by saying, as you said on Rising Anxieties the other day, I'm in a mood, or you say it's really bad, I'm going to go get through this anyway. Can you just go through that a little bit? Like why is this undoing you so much, and is there a parallel to the way you see the world vis-a-vis animals, Mariann?
Well, I mean, I don't think I'm the only one.
No, of
A lot
course
of
not.
people
I'm
are really
asking you.
terrified. I mean, it's kind of a new situation. I mean, I've been around for a while, and I remember really bad times. I remember the Vietnam War and the huge protests and all the people dying. I mean, those things were really big, but there's never been any like, this is insane. I mean, and I think if you're paying attention, you know that. I do think that for anybody who's an animal activist, there is a certain depth at which you see this, because being an animal activist just teaches you something about humans, that all, not the bad ones. I mean, we all know about bad people and people who do bad things and who are narcissists and or, but the good people, like we all have people who we love and respect and think are really fine people, who completely and totally ignore what's happening to animals, and that's terrifying. I mean, it's just terrifying. So I think that experience, I mean, the one where you found out what was happening to animals and you first thought, oh my God, I have to tell everybody, and then you do and nothing changes, like that experience over and over and over again just gives you a certain attitude towards other humans that makes you scared that they're not going to fix everything, that they are willing to remain blind to things. I mean, and even if they did all want to fix things, and I think that people are beginning to wake up a bit now, and maybe we're approaching a turning point, or maybe I shouldn't even say that. uh they're still like completely oblivious to other
Mhm.
issues, and obviously this one is the big one. And when you wake up to it, it just scares you about what humans are capable of, I think. And not that most people are pretty good. Most people really try to do the right thing, and even when they're trying to do the right thing, they're so difficult to persuade that this is one of them, even though it's completely so obvious to us. So I don't know. I'm rattling a little, but I think that might be the reason.
Akbar, you have like a tiny amount of smoke coming out of your ears. So, what do you want to respond to that?
I mean, I relate to everything Mariann is saying. And as a younger activist, someone new to this movement, I already feel the burnout, right? I felt so invigorated, just like Mariann. I was like, this is an information problem. If people have the information, they'll make the change. And when you see that fail repeatedly, it's very tough not to become cynical about a whole and have that cynicism pervade your attitude towards a whole host of causes that you might have been previously much more enthusiastic about. And it's tough. It's important to remain vigilant against that very natural impulse, because there's definitely a temptation. I was scrolling on Instagram the other night, and I saw some vegan activists who were repeating the kind of slogan of like, everyone's a leftist until it comes to veganism, everyone's a leftist until it comes to animal rights. And I I so deeply relate to that impulse to repudiate and to take an opportunity where there's something going on that's not related to animal rights, where people are displaying such effusive righteous anger, and say, where is this for animals, right? Where is this for the injustice that's been under your nose the whole time? But at the same time, the cause of immigration rights and justice for undocumented people, that's our cause too. Right now, the left's cause is our cause, but our cause for the moment is not necessarily the left's cause. Um,
Mhm.
it's tough, and sometimes we have to hold our tongue, but we shouldn't hesitate to, I think, embrace the activism. You kind of lead by example. You take it on the chin, and hopefully that
Yeah.
that inspires your opposition to join you a little bit.
Can I ask you, do you mind if I ask you how old you are?
I'm 32. I'm actually turning 33 this year.
Okay. Uh, I'm just curious. Okay, so you're, as Marianne used to say to me when I was 27, you're not that young.
Yeah.
But so what does it feel like to be, I would say, what, a younger millennial probably, and to be starting out working for animals like at this moment? I mean, not to erase what you've been doing for the last 10 years, but do you feel that there is more or less possibility for radical change now because of all the political turmoil? And maybe this is even a more relevant question to you at 32 than it would be to you at 22, because you've seen the last 10 years as an adult out of college. So what does it feel like now? Are we at a turning point?
I would say a turning point, that implies like a kink in the curve
Yeah.
or something like that. But I'd say it's maybe wishful thinking, but I'd say we're at a steady upward trajectory. This is not the kind of cause that's going to catch fire overnight and convince everyone. That goal of getting rid of factory farming in our lifetime, it's one you got to hope for the best, prepare for the worst. But maybe this same cycle that everyone goes through, I'm just at the, okay, what can we do? What will work? Instead of hoping that rhetoric and information will persuade other people. I think every vegan is a little weird. Obviously not everyone is,
It's so true.
going to be persuaded. So we have to maybe think outside of our circle for the strategies that are going to work. And I see that level of seriousness in the community now. That I was talking to, not to go off, but I was talking to I went to a conference at NYU a couple months ago, and I asked a partner at a law firm who's a very prominent vegan activist, has been for much of their life, about what they thought about the first wave kind of veganism versus second wave, put
Hmm.
it that way. And I think that's kind of a change that I'm observing, is that it's not just about activism and protest and indignation, but now I hesitate to use the word, but infiltration of vegans into spaces where they aren't going to be as vocal. It's not as prudent to be as outspoken, but where they might get to make some have some input and some decisions that can actually result in better lives for animals.
Yeah, and I think that's extremely true. Like, and having watched what's going on for a long time, the progress in those kinds of ways, which aren't as obvious to anybody, including us, is palpable. I mean, one of the reasons I think is just that there's money now. I mean, 20 years ago there was no money in this movement, and the effective altruism money, and the few billionaires who actually are interested in the issue has changed things a lot. And it's given the opportunity for that. I like the word infiltration. I do still believe in the whole tipping point idea. I do. I know that may make me naive, but I just feel like because everyone actually agrees with us that not everyone, but most people agree with us that it's really wrong to do this. It's fundamentally immoral. But for some reason don't change. I mean, that's the part that we can't seem to understand. Like, so why don't you go vegan? And we talk about that all the time. Whether people think their individual change will make a difference or whatever, or lots of other ideas of that peculiar thing. But I think that there is a possibility that if we make enough, chip away at the weird people who are more likely to become vegan, who are more likely to actually become activists, who are more likely to become passionate, or just accumulate that number, which grows so unbelievably slowly, that at some point there will be enough people who will be hearing it and who will change sort of, and then it will just become obvious that you were supposed to do this the whole time. I mean, because it is obvious. And there could be rapid change. I mean, especially given that other problems with raising animals for food. I mean, at some point, presumably, we'll start worrying about climate again. Something will remind us that the world is on fire. And so I do think it's possible that it's not just linear progression, that there will be linear progression for a certain amount of time, and then it will explode. That's what I'm hoping it's before I die. But whatever. If it's not, I will assume it's right after I die, as I'm dying. As you're dying.
I'll be doing the same.
Hopefully not, unless you die young. Okay.
Oh my God. Okay. Moving on. So in your day-to-day right now, Akber, tell us a little bit about, tell us about the program at Harvard and how you're sort of integrating all of these thoughts into your work these days.
Yeah, well, so before I went to law school, I studied economics and I worked at the Federal Reserve for 5 years, and then as an economist at a firm called Morning Consult, doing forecasts. And I was living in DC, so I got involved with the animal activist scene there, and just got persuaded that this was a morally urgent enough cause that I should upskill, maybe laterally skill to a JD.
We like to think of it as up.
Sure. And was looking for programs that were in the Northeast mostly. So I'm married. My wife works in New York. And I applied to schools that had some like relationship with animal rights. But Bob Barker, the fantastic host of Price is Right, had donated, I think, $1 million a piece to a bunch of schools, great law schools, to start like an animal law program or have a course. So some connective tissue there was important. And I went to Cornell first. I actually transferred to Harvard this past semester because I knew about Professor Dorff, and I knew that Mariann was teaching an animal law course there. It was small, and the community of interested people interested in animal rights at Cornell was small, which is why and especially after Mariann stopped teaching the course, I was like, well, I gotta go where my people are. And I was really, Mariann, I loved sitting in on your class the couple times I did at Cornell, and I had been listening to the podcast beforehand, so it was a very fangirl experience for me. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, then I've
and you weren't in the. I should explain. You weren't in the class because you were first year, and it wasn't open to first year law students.
Yeah, I had to sneak out of my property class to come to yours. I didn't sneak out. I asked for permission.
People might have been wondering why you didn't take the course who don't understand how law school works, but the courses you can take in your first year are very limited.
Yeah. And now at Harvard, I remember going to an event for an animal talk, something about big law attorneys that had pivoted to doing animal rights work, worked in nonprofits. And the room was packed, it was like, there were like 50 people in there. And it sounds a little cringy, but yeah, my heart really swelled. I remember just thinking like, there are people here who get it. Okay, maybe half of them were there for the free food, but at least half of them I confirmed were there because they want to do something. They hear the urgency and they want to do something. And whether there are enough things to do for a law student saddled with debt and looking at the choice of careers, open question. But the community at Harvard is really great, and it's in touch with all law schools that have these kind of programs, especially like Lewis and Clark, NYU, and so it was. Yeah, I can't say enough how nice it is to work in a legal setting and have people to talk to about this, and it's been a big change, and I'm very happy, and it makes me hopeful for the movement.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Because at Cornell I mean, like, the law school at Cornell it's not really big, and I mean, I always had a nice class, but it was not a huge community of people who were passionate about animal rights. So I imagine it is very different at Harvard. And I'll just mention also, because I found it particularly impressive, that your internship in your first summer was with Legal Impact for Chickens, and I get the feeling that you really liked the work you were doing there, because you've talked about it a lot. And is that the kind of work that you imagine yourself doing if everything works out?
I'm still trying to see where my energies will match up. I discovered, the kind of person you need to be to engage in like really long litigation with uncertain, high risk, high reward, high rate of failure. I loved Aline and the team that she's put together. I can't say enough good things about them. Just the way they approach their work, and how they've been so smart in from everything from their operations to how they raise money. I'm still deciding. I vacillate. Do I want to be doing litigation, or do I want to go? Okay, there's some other litigator who's going to be better than me. Maybe I'll just try and make as much money as I can and donate it to
Oh no, don't
animal
do
rights
that. I
causes.
hate that shit.
Yeah, disabuse me of that notion. I
In the first
I
place, your
don't.
life will be hell, because you'll be doing, like, I don't know. I know it makes sense to a lot of people, but I just think we need people who are working for the cause, and expressing their passion and living their lives in a way that expresses that, rather than just having your life be all about just donating. I don't
Yes,
know.
and I'll
That was
say
very poorly expressed. I don't know exactly what it is that bugs me about it, but a lot of people do that. That's been kind of in fashion in the whole effective altruism movement, and I just doesn't speak to me.
you're right. I mean, you're right for your hackles to be up when you hear stuff like that, because value creep is a real thing. It's when you're being paid to have a certain point of view. Yeah, you're right. Uh, the work that Lick does, though, there's something so appealing about it. I think their slogan is still like, making animal cruelty a liability, and it's really about making it a liability in a litigation risk sense
Yeah,
that
it's very
corporations.
strategic.
It's very strategic. They have to price it in. And there's also something poignant about the fact that they are not trying to get new laws passed. They are not trying to change the current legal paradigm. They are trying to get laws that are on the books enforced. That's it. And that shouldn't be a radical position. And yet, um,
Totally. I totally agree. Particularly cruelty laws. If we actually enforce them, we wouldn't do any of this. It says it's against the law to cause an animal to suffer unnecessarily. I mean, game over. None of it's necessary. We're vegan. We're alive. We're fine.
I want to go back to like some of those big ideas we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, because you have this big idea that the real question is basically, where do we draw the line on whose suffering counts? So what do you mean by that in plain English? And like, let's just say you had to explain it to your former self in like 30 seconds. How would you do it?
to, I think, everyone's horror, starting with just the people that we have thought deserving of moral consideration, has been a moving target. Thankfully for people, it's been moving in the right direction over the last couple hundred years. But I was reading recently that wasn't too long ago that people thought either that babies couldn't feel pain, or
Right.
that because they were so young and their memories weren't forming, that you could conduct surgery on them without anesthesia, and they wouldn't remember it or something. It's a function of norms, and it's also laws are just a codification of our moral relationships with one another into the political project that we're all living in. And so it's just about a shift from the perspective of the administrator of the rights to the perspective of the person, the individual, and their capacities to feel. And if you're gonna, the arguments for justifying animal suffering on the basis of whatever spurious reasoning you want to offer, it's been done for a long time, or they have different intellectual capacities, they're just the same arguments that we use to oppress our fellow human beings. And so we change the laws and the norms to bring the people into our tent, and the same kind of urgent moral circumstances apply across the board to animals. It's just different. It's just, I think about, even if you were a slaveholder who maybe as an intellectual defense mechanism thought that Black people were just not people, they were obviously people. They looked like people. They were intelligent, and it still took so long for that plain as day fact to be acknowledged by our legal system. So I have a great worry for animals, because we all know that they feel, science bears all that out, but they just look so different. It's going to be commensurately harder to overcome this bias that we all have to not extend love and care to people that don't, and things that don't look like us.
Except that people do care about animals.
Yeah.
This also reminded me of that quote. I think I mentioned it to you the other day, from Sojourner Truth, who was this an abolitionist speaker and campaigner very early on. I mean, I think she was born into slavery in New York State, so that was really early on, before New York. And this has always stuck in my head, this argument that she made. And this is a quote. It's not a direct quote, because people wrote down what she said. Obviously, they didn't record it or anything. So I'm just gonna say it. Then they talk about this thing in the head. What's this they call it? And a member of the audience whispers, intellect. That's it, honey. What's that got to do with women's rights or Negroes' rights? If my cup won't hold but a pint and yours holds a quart, wouldn't you be mean not to let me have my little half measure full? Now, I don't think for a second, given the other things she wrote, that she thought that either quote unquote Negroes or women didn't have the same intellect as men. I think it was an argument she was making. Like, that argument doesn't work, because even if I don't have as much, I still have the amount I have, and that should be respected. But for animals, it really is different. They are different. I mean, I'm not saying they're lesser, but they're different, and their intellects are very different. And it's exactly the same thing. Like, that's not an excuse to torture them or enslave them. Like, we should respect their measureful of whatever it is they have. I mean, I'm not sure that convinces everybody, but I've always loved that truth, and I always loved that quote, and I've always thought it really applied better to animals than it did to either women or enslaved people. But it's another dead end argument. It's just, oh, they're not as smart, therefore, well, that just doesn't end the argument. There's a whole lot of other things you can say about, which of course everyone says all the time, but it just reminded me when you were talking about that argument. And I think that the really important point that I do go back to is that people do care about animals instinctively. I mean, really instinctively, and on an emotional level. Emotion being the language of instinct. We just have to somehow reach that.
Well, I just, if you'll indulge me as we start to wrap up, I wanted to just, and Mariann doesn't know I'm going to do this, but I wanted to ask you.
I'm suddenly frightened.
I wanted to ask you a lightning round of questions, just like super fast, like, see what the top of your head has to say about this, just for a minute or so. Would you mind?
Of course not. Yeah, let's go.
You need like a shot of whiskey or something, because I can hold. Or is that what's in your coffee cup?
Just coffee.
We are recording in the morning, I should say.
Yeah, okay. All right, Akber. A belief you've changed your mind about in the last 5 years.
Animal rights. Yeah, I became vegan less than 5 years ago, so that was an easy one.
A word you think is doing too much damage in public debate. It doesn't have to be a word.
That's
It could be a
tough.
phrase or like a mindset. I'm putting you on the spot
That's really
completely.
hard.
I know.
It
So you're
is
like,
hard, honestly,
I'm
but
never coming back.
the first thing that came to mind, unfortunately, is maybe like Nazi. I just find the constant maximalist rhetoric from either side to be, it's not the cause of our political problems. It is a symptom, I think, indication that they are becoming intractable. You know, so many things that ICE is doing are morally objectionable and deserving of the precise same protest response without them needing to be what the Third Reich was doing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point
So
because it also gives them an argument as to why that's ridiculous. Of course, it's not like the Third Reich, which is actually true, but
you don't
beside the
want it to
point.
get like the Third Reich, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
the
headed there.
constant, yeah, you know, the constant maximalism we could use to maybe back
How
off a
does that
little.
apply to
It's
animals?
maybe we could also shy away from arguments that require animal suffering to be. I mean, that's a tough thing though, because just run the numbers. It's arguably, if you want to play that game, maybe the worst thing ever. But we should just be. It doesn't need to be the worst thing ever for it to be wrong and for you to not support it, I guess.
Beautiful. Yeah. I totally agree with that. All right. A piece of media you
Even
wish
though it is.
a, a piece of media you wish everyone would watch or read. And let's just say the Animal Law podcast and our Hen House are obvious. Yes, those. So aside from our Hen House and the Animal Law podcast, a piece of media you wish everyone would watch or read.
There's so much good animal related stuff. I'm going to just take this question more broadly and maybe lightly. I watch. It has nothing to do with animal rights. It has nothing to do with anything.
Fine.
I watched season 2 of the HBO show The Rehearsal recently. I don't know if you guys have heard about that. There's a comedian, Nathan Fielder. He simulates elaborate role playing experiments. It's such a funny show. If people are want something
I'm
light,
in.
I could use
yeah. He
funny.
basically he recreates airline accidents in an earnest attempt to solve the problem of pilot communication in the cockpit,
Sounds
which he
hilarious.
believes it's actually the funniest thing because he's a comedian and he's trying to change the FAA.
All
It's
right.
it's very good.
I'm going to check it out. I just jotted it down. A meal you'd serve to a skeptical omnivore to keep it friendly and,
Do you
bring them
do
over
you
to our side.
do you cook?
Or
I don't.
order. You could just
I
order
don't.
it.
But my wife is an incredible vegan cook, and
Oh,
I would just invite them over for
look at
dinner.
you.
I would just invite them over for dinner with my wife, and there's so many great vegan cookbooks, like I don't know, the Rainbow Plant Based Korean Vegan or whatever.
Hmm.
She's just so good. You pick any one of those, as long as it's got protein in it. I love tofu. I love seitan. I work out. Protein as a vegan. It's very easy to get, but I think the real omnivore dilemma is, am I getting enough protein? And that's
Hmm.
so we should
Yeah,
we should be.
I think it's easy to get, but I mean, we've talked about this a million times. It's not inevitable. It is something we should be paying attention to and learning more about, and not just keep saying, well, if you get enough calories, you'll have enough protein. That's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
So my final question for you is, what is one question that you wish we asked you today that we didn't?
Don't I'm grateful for the time. You've asked me everything. I got to share a little bit of what I thought and all the issues of the day, and a little bit of my own life. So um
Actually, there was a question I wanted to ask you, so I'm going to answer that question. I asked you, is it okay if we ask you your vegan story? You said sure, but we didn't. So, what's your vegan story? How did this come about?
yeah. I'll try, relatively abridged version. I mean, I'd been aware, just like you're right, Marianne. Everyone who's ever known an animal, who has entertained the intellectual argument for a second, has been aware this is wrong. But this is 2017. I was on a road trip. I was traveling from New Hampshire to California, and it was the very last leg that we were driving up from, I think, Vegas up through um, to San Francisco, and we drove by what I think is a well-known um, factory farm feedlot in that part of California. I think people affectionately call it Cowschwitz. And the smell of the place hit me first before I saw it, and it was disgusting. I thought we were driving
Yeah.
by a sewage treatment facility. And then as we crested this hill, I saw this bleak, barren, grassless landscape with thousands of cows. And that was a moment where I was like, do you care? Do you care about this? Like, it's time. It's time. That was the inciting incident. And then a friend, that I'd made in DC had just challenged me to be like, well, what about eggs and dairy? I just didn't know about calf separation and maceration. And as soon as I did, I started trying to cut all that out. It took probably a couple of years though, maybe 2 years, 2 or 3 years. So I've been on the decline, but I mean, it was seeing it. It was our sense apparati are just such powerful change agents. You smell something disgusting, that's a deep ancestral response, and that really pushed me over the edge. It was gruesome, and that was really, that was it. Smell of death in the air.
Yeah, wow, exactly. I've never heard.
Exactly.
I mean, I have driven on that, by the way, and it's unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable. But I haven't heard that story from someone yet about like that being their go vegan story, and I don't know what the word is. I want to say that's super cool. Like, I don't think cool is anywhere near what it is, but for some reason, there's something about like smell, being the prime sense of what would create change for someone and ultimately create change for animals that it touches me a lot. So, Akber, thank you so much. Don't go anywhere because we still have to close out the show here, but I appreciate the opportunity to pick your brain a little bit. I know we totally put you on the spot and you handled it like such a pro. And the fact that you're also just having these difficult conversations with us, with your colleagues, with your family, all of that, it's inspiring. I mean, it was Mariann who was like, sending me what you two were discussing, and she was very inspired by it. And I was too. And so I'm glad you're going to be out there, changing the world for animals hopefully as your focus. I also am given hope by the fact that you said you have hope. So I'm just going to consider that contagious, because otherwise it's a dark, scary place. You do have hope? Was that real, or did you?
I do. I do.
You do?
For the same reasons as Mariann. You see the way people treat the animals they know. So you see that there's possibility there.
Well, I hope that you will not be a stranger to our
well, especially to the Animal Law podcast, since I
yeah,
need your help.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate you so much. For those of you listening and watching, we did want to just briefly mention a book that we have heard about that looks really cool. Sometimes we don't have time to read all of the books, watch all of the movies, but we do like to shed light on them when we can. So this is a book called The New Sentience, Reimagining Animal Poetry. It is edited by Ashley Capps and Allison Titus, with a foreword by Alexis Pauline Gums. And the description of this, which I do want to get my hands on this, and I won't say that I always do, because not all of the books we talk about are, my cup of tea, but this definitely sounds like it is. A poetry anthology that highlights animal sentience and subjectivity, compelling an earnest re-examination of what humans owe our more than human kin. How we write about animals, how we represent them in our poems and our stories. It doesn't simply reflect how we relate to them in the world. It also shapes how we treat them. Any cultural shift in how we conceive of other animals requires a shift in how we read and write about them. The New Sentience seeks to help catalyze this shift by ushering in a new kind of animal poetry. And that's what editors Ashley Capps and Allison Titus dub kin poetics. Whereas animals in Western poetry have disproportionately functioned as symbols, the poems in this anthology foreground a meaningful awareness of animal sentience and subjectivity, depicting other animals as individuals with dynamic selfhood, personalities, and emotional lives. I'm in.
Yeah, that really hits that note that we always talk about how animals are always standing. They aren't necessarily always standing in for humans or a metaphor for something in literature. But when the literature is reviewed, it is so often reviewed in the light that telling us what the animal story was a metaphor for. Maybe it's not a metaphor. Maybe it's a story. I should mention that the poets in this are not necessarily, this isn't necessarily new poetry. Among the poets featured are Wendell Berry, Lucille Clifton, E. Cummings, Mary Oliver, and Ross Gay. And Margaret Atwood. So yeah, if that's your bag, sounds like it's really good.
It's my bag. Speaking of bags, I've been, Mariann did tell me this morning that my crafting has jumped the shark. But aside from that little piece
Do
of...
people still know what that phrase means?
Do you know what that means?
Oh, awkward.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So that has really entered into the general zeitgeist.
Just because this outfit that I'm wearing, which only our YouTube viewers will know, was once a scarf and a sweatshirt and is now just one shirt.
That's bad.
Just because, I know,
It's
whatever.
bad.
I've also been experimenting with vegan leather products and, the sustainable vegan leather products, and it's been really fun. But the patterns that I'm getting are unfortunately on like leather pattern websites and leather pattern, Etsy and whatnot. And so now I'm getting all of these ads in front of me for like leather this and leather that. I've been vegan for like 22 years, and this is the first time. This is very disturbing, but
maybe
at
you
the
need
same
to
time,
start a whole site for vegan leather crafting. There's a niche for you.
No, there's actually there are some, but I'm trying to find the exact thickness of the type of leather that they want. And to use Akber's word, I'm infiltrating the space. Like there's a vegan lesbian, mediocre at best crafter in these leather spaces. Who else is
Extraordinary activism, truly.
Well, Akber said that I don't necessarily need to be, protesting. I could just be quietly making my little vegan.
I'm not sure that's exactly what he said.
All right, fine. It's not my finest. It's not my finest activism, but I just wanted a moment of I wanted a moment of help and someone to pat my back and say, there, little puppy. But when you're done patting my back, make sure that you know that Rising Anxieties comes out on Tuesdays. Mariann, I really enjoyed your Rising Anxieties the other day, by the way, the one where you had the mood. I feel like so many people can relate to what you're doing there, and I think it's a real service.
I actually have a story about that. I was talking about an article in the New York Review of Books that reviewed 3 books about backyard chickens. And I was in a very snarky mood. I think I said I was in a very snarky mood when I recorded it. And one of the books was by Tove Danovich. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I did make it clear that she obviously clearly loves her chickens, but she eats eggs. That's why we never invited her on the podcast. Not that she necessarily wouldn't come, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think I was like horrible, even though I frequently am. I just got a letter from her, the loveliest letter from her. It never occurs to me that anybody I talk about will write to me. She said she's very familiar with our hen house, which thrilled me, and just said, she cares deeply about chickens, and she knows I do too. It was lovely, but I feel bad that I was so snarky.
Many years ago,
I mentioned at the time that it was 6 o'clock in the morning when I was recording it. That's my excuse.
Many years ago, you and I saw on Broadway a fabulous, fabulous play called What the Constitution Means to Me. And we talked about it because there was a moment where like a fly came on the stage, like a literal fly. And the person was the actor who was breaking the fourth wall in this moment and speaking to the audience directly, was kind of talking about the fly. And I brought that up on the podcast, and we started talking about the sentience of that fly. And whoever was doing our social media at the time, like tagged that play, and the actor in it like wrote to us, and I was like, oh my God. And anyway, it is always funny because you do kind of feel sometimes like you're just like talking at each other, or in your case for Rising Anxieties.
I don't think that we tagged anybody. So
no, I mean, there you go. What if we tagged her? We'd be
I never tag anybody that I talk about at Rising Anxieties because it's mostly people in the industry, and I don't want them to know about it.
Yeah, same. I know they haven't caught on yet.
They won't let me on their websites anymore.
Yeah,
I'm curious. What did the actor say about the fly?
Because I wasn't sure if it was part of the show, and the actor, and she said it wasn't at all part of the show, and she was being really compassionate to the fly.
Yeah, that was the point on the podcast.
Yeah,
very good.
She was trying to save the fly.
Yeah, and so I when I replied, I was like, hey, you should go to PS Kitchen, right in the theater district, vegan restaurant. And she wrote back, and we had a nice back and forth. And she's like, okay, I just made reservations. So it was like, this was like 10 years ago or something, and it was just such a fun moment of activism. And I'm an actor, and like endlessly starstruck with anyone who's on Broadway. You know, whether it's like the chorus girl in the back of like anyone, I'm like, I love you and want to be you. And so I was gobsmacked by the whole thing, and they
Yeah, and
it
it all
sparked a
worked out well
little,
for the fly.
yeah, and it sparked a little back and forth about sentience and that whole play, What the Constitution Means to Me, which you can watch now. There is a recorded version of it on one of the streaming networks, which Akbar, I totally recommend. It's so good.
Oh
It
yeah, if you
is
haven't seen
about,
it, it's so good.
it's about thoughtfulness and like and social justice, and so like using this little fly as an opportunity to go deeper and bring in the animals was a really cool opportunity. Wow, that was a total, I digress completely. But anyway, I think, and Mariann,
Speaking of which, we're almost at 50 minutes.
I know, it's ridiculous. Vicky's going to kill us. By the way, Vicky, whenever we talk about how she's going to kill us or yell at us, she's like, I don't yell, you know, and she is like the kindest, most patient individual. Like, so it is funny.
But she does work very hard.
All right.
It's a lot of
So
extra
Rising
work.
Anxieties comes out on Tuesdays, the Hen Report on Thursdays. That's this, the long form.
Oh, wait, I have something else I need to talk about.
No,
I'm sorry.
Go
I'm
for
sorry,
it.
Vicky.
That's
no,
right.
I just wanted to mention in this context, the interview that comes out on Friday is the Animal Law Podcast interview. And it is with Wayne Chung and Stefan Seitz about Wayne's conviction in Sonoma County, you know, of course, which he went to prison for. He's been out for a long time now. And it's a great interview. And I just wanted to mention it in particular because there's a new article about Wayne. Well, it's an interview with Wayne. In the New Yorker, the new New Yorker, which like that's really impressive, getting an article there about what I talked to him about the last time he was on the podcast, which is his journey as going to seminary and studying the usefulness of religion, not just religious beliefs, but religious structure and religious community in animal activism. So great article, great interview.
You know, Victoria Moran of Main Street Vegan also like studied religion. I mean,
Absolutely.
I think she has like a master's in it, I think.
Oh.
I might be, or she has a degree in it, but the point is, I think that's really fascinating. I
think it's hugely important.
Yeah.
I mean, totally. You know, it's unbelievable how all the religions just take a pass. Well, maybe not Buddhism, but it takes kind of a pass.
Mm-hmm.
The
like
Jains.
this moral issue. They're just like, oh yeah, well we'll deal with that when we fix humans. I'm sorry, Akbar, what were you going to say?
The Jains get it right, you know.
The Jains, except for the Jains.
I do love the Jain community.
The vegan Jains.
Yes, yeah. No, I read that article that you shared with me this morning about that, Mariann, or last night, and I give so much credit to Wayne. The man is really a moral entrepreneur, and I think religion as a
great line
is a new vector for animal rights community building and activism is smart, and I'm excited to see what he does with it.
Yeah, me too.
Totally.
And I find religion completely fascinating. So there's that.
I know, too. and you know, I mentioned Mariann and I have known each other for about 20 years, and you know, we originally met because I was writing an article on the overlaps between animal rights and gay rights, and you mentioned, Akbar, before that, you know, it is all interconnected, and I think that was very much the crux of Mariann and I coming together originally. And it's to the point of religion, like as soon as someone says God said so, then anything goes. I mean, anything goes. It's like conversation ender. God said so. Cool. Check. I mean, and so how do we infiltrate those spaces? And how do we
could actually read the Bible or perhaps the Quran and there'd be really good stuff in there that God allegedly anyway actually did say, which isn't anything like what people say that God said frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's both, I think, pretty wise for the animal rights activists to be exploring that. You know, there's that book by Matthew Scully, I think I'll probably familiar with, Dominion, which I don't think is affiliated with the documentary. But the Christian case for compassion towards animals and veganism, that's really important. I think exploring, there's the Wilberforce Institute, I believe, which, you know, I'm not super familiar with their work necessarily, but I just know that it's, you know, making appeals to conservatives. I think that's really, really important work. If we're being rebuffed or not getting the warm welcome that we necessarily like from people on the left, it's legitimate to seek,
Absolutely.
that
I
fellows
mean,
on the right.
the
Yeah.
animals
They
who
don't
are
care.
eaten by conservative people suffer just as much as the animals eaten by lefties. We have to appeal to everybody. Can't just also religion. I mean, I think goes beyond like a red-blue divide.
Yeah, and you could be funny if there's anyone on this is listening to this podcast who works for like a lab grown meat company. Look to the Bible for your case about the 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 sanctioning by Jesus Christ of cellular lab grown fish. He fed multitudes with a loaf and two fish. He didn't. He obviously cloned the fish in some kind of scaffolding, and
I have brought that up at least a million times on the podcast.
there it
It's my
is.
absolute favorite argument.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. We're on the same page. Christspiracy as well. So many good opportunities out there for exploring this subject, and I'm so excited to hear your interview with Wayne. So catch our next episode of the Our Hen House interview tomorrow, and thanks to Vicky Beechler, who is a very kind person, and to Jen Riley.
And is not going to yell at us, but we'll know that she wants to.
And Akber, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to all of you next time.